Athira, and in this presentation, I will analyze a teaching video based on 5 pedagogical aspects. The purpose of this analysis is to evaluate the teacher's instructional practice and identify both the strengths and areas for improvement in the teaching and learning process. Without further ado, let's begin with the first aspect, opening activity. In the opening activity, the teacher managed the classroom effectively. The lesson began with a prayer, followed by attendance checking and singing the Indonesian national song Garuda Pancasila. At 4:30, the teacher played an instructional video to motivate the students. The use of the video at the beginning of the lesson successfully captured the students' attention, making them more enthusiastic and ready to participate in the learning process. At 5:40, the teacher asked a series of guiding questions related to the lesson. The questions were intended to stimulate the students' curiosity while activating their prior knowledge and connecting it to the new material. At 6:20, the teacher introduced the general topic of the lesson, which focused on the parts of plants and their function. This overview helps students understand what they would be learning throughout the lesson. However, the teacher did not explicitly communicate the learning objectives, so the expected learning outcomes were not clearly stated. Next is main activity. The main activity began at 6:25 when the teacher used a chili plant as a counter teaching aid to explain the lesson. This authentic learning material enables students to observe the parts of a real plant directly, making the learning experience more meaningful and contextual than relying solely on pictures or verbal explanation. At 7:1, the teacher explained the parts of a plant and their respective functions in a logical and systematic manner, making the content easy for elementary school students to understand. At 7:31, the teacher reinforced the explanation by showing another instructional video about the parts of plants and their function. The audiovisual media strengthens students' understanding by combining the teacher's explanation with visual demonstration. At 7:53, the teacher divided the students into small groups to complete a student worksheet or alphabet. The activity continued at 8:26 when students were instructed to discuss the worksheet collaboratively with their group members. After completing the discussion, at 8:40, each group presented the result of their discussion to the class. This presentation activity not only helps students deepen their understanding of the topic but also develop their communication, collaboration, and presentation skills. Based on these activities, the teacher implemented the problem-based learning model supported by the group discussion method. The lesson also reflected a collaborative and student-centered learning approach, as students actively observed, discussed, solved problems, and presented their findings, while the teacher primarily as a facilitator throughout the learning process. And the next is mastery and delivery of the content. The teacher demonstrated strong content mastery throughout the lesson. The explanation of the parts of plants and their function was presented systematically, logically, and using language that was appropriate for elementary school students. In addition to verbal explanation, the teacher strengthened the lesson by using both a real chili plant and instructional videos. The combination of direct explanation, construct learning materials, and audiovisual media made the lesson more engaging and easier for students to understand. Next is integration of learning media. The teacher successfully demonstrated the application of technological pedagogical content knowledge by integrating technology, pedagogy, and subject content into the lesson. The use of technology was evident at 4:30 and 7:31 when the teacher utilized a laptop, projector, and speakers to display instructional videos. This audiovisual resource increased students' motivation while enhancing their understanding of the lesson content. At 14, the teacher asked several oral questions to assess students' understanding of the material. In addition, the teacher praised students who answered correctly. This positive reinforcement helped increase students' motivation and confidence during the learning process. Overall, the teacher implemented formative assessment through oral questioning and a simple summative assessment through a written evaluation. However, the feedback provided was generally limited to praise. The quality of feedback could be improved by offering more specific explanation, such as clarifying why an answer was correct or identifying misconception when an answer was incorrect. This will help students develop a deeper understanding of the lesson content. Overall, the lesson was effective in engaging students and helping them understand the learning material. Thank you for your attention. I hope this presentation has provided a clear overview of the teaching video analysis. Thank you.